Hello everybody, wherever you may be, and this is the Retro Bear speaking to you from the gaming pantry, connected to three other YouTubers. Where do you get four from? I can't remember. Anyway, it's been a long day. Three other YouTubers to talk about gaming-related stuff in the tNb Gaming Podcast. We are at episode 6, which is some achievement, but then again you remember that they made at least 7 Police Academy films, and I don't recall anybody laughing at any of those. Laughing in the background. So this is what we do. We put this up every Sunday night at 7, the weekly ramblings of 4 people with nothing else better to do but to talk about games, but we all get on rather well, and hopefully you'll find the chat as interesting as we do. 3 returning panellists once again this evening for you. Our other 2 members, Pete and Eddie, couldn't be with us tonight. I'm sure they'll be popping up on a future podcast. Like we always do, bring everybody in one by one. So I very much like to welcome Sean from Retro Games Revived to the Gaming Pantry and the podcast. Hi, Sean.
Hello, mate. How we good?
We're not bad. We're not bad. And how are you?
Yeah, I'm really well, mate. Thank you.
Good. And next on the panel, he always seems to be here. He's probably the, I think, most appearances apart from myself. We can't keep him away. But he is here once again tonight for his legion of fans. The sexiest man on YouTube. It is, of course, Nath Retro. Hello, Nath.
Good evening, all.
And how are you, mate?
I'm good, thank you.
You are?
Nice to be back.
Yeah, again.
It's been a while.
It's your first week off last week, wasn't it?
Yeah. No, it was the week before.
Was it the week before? Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I can't remember. You hear that often. I'm not sure whether it's you here or not.
I haven't been furloughed yet.
Letters in the post. Yeah. And finally, from the south of England, a man who's churning out some amazing content, and he's probably the busiest person on YouTube of the 4 of us, certainly at the moment, with so many ideas. He's literally falling over himself to get those onto YouTube. It's called Colonaldinho Plays. Hello, Rob.
Hello, Mr. Bear. Yes, man of many ideas.
And you had another one, didn't you? And then you had to take it down. Was that right?
No, that was just there was a small error in it, so I took it down.
Oh, right.
But apart from that, yes, more ideas are coming. But I must say, by the way, if we're on number 6, that is a rather small achievement, may I add, because you now need 2 hands to count how many we've done. You know,
What are you going to do when we get to 11, Rob?
it's actually 21 that's the problem, mate.
21, yeah. I said 22, but okay. Yeah. We're just on different levels on that one, aren't we? Yeah. We always start these podcasts. I mean, we always say there's no sort of format. So we've got a couple of topics we're going to discuss a bit later on, but we always start these with what have we been playing since we last spoke to you 7 days ago. Sean, would you like to kick us off, please, mate?
It come as no surprise to you that
Not
I've been
Shenmue
playing Call of Duty. No, you thought I was going to say Shenmue, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I thought you were going to say that.
Yeah, I've washed my hands of that now, mate. Obviously I've been playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare online. But I have actually been on my Pandora's box, and I've found a little gem. I have known about it before, but I've long forgot how good it was, and I don't know if Rob here will actually appreciate this. It's called Football Champ. It will by Taito.
Oh, I know that one.
I know the one. Yeah.
That's where you have a superstar player that does a ridiculous way of scoring sometimes.
Right.
He flips upside down, and the goalie catches it, and he can't actually stop the ball. He catches it, and it pushes him back into the net. Yeah, I think that's the one. Yeah, I played that a ton in the arcade.
Yeah, it's a really good football game, actually. Obviously, it's very arcadey. It's fast and furious. But I've had. I wouldn't say I've had a longer on it. I've really only just got back into it. But yeah, it's piqued my interest, definitely, and I'm really enjoying that at the minute. So that's what I've been playing. Not too many games, but both very enjoyable games.
Just for the uninitiated amongst us, or those people who may not have heard it out there, Pandora's box, when you say that, obviously we're not meaning the end of the universe. What is one of those, just for those people who don't know what it is?
Basically, it's an arcade machine in a box. The box is quite long. It's got two joysticks, two sets of joysticks, buttons, obviously for 2 players. But basically, it's just on mine there's 1,299 arcade games preloaded on, and that's basically what it is. It's an arcade in your home on your lap.
That's quite convenient. So that's. I've been looking. I mean, is it about 120, 130 quid, something like that?
I paid 160 for mine. Mine's a 5S model. Probably a little bit overpriced, really, for what I paid. I know Pete's delving into the Pandora's box. He's looking at the 12 series, the 12S. But yeah, there's mine's quite an old one now, I suppose. But it's got obviously 1,299 games on. A lot of fighting games. You've got a lot of SNK fighting games. What are they called now? King of Fighters.
King of Fighters, yeah.
So there's about
nice.
5 pages of them.
I say 94 and still going, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Same with Street Fighters and other fighting games, but there's still a good mix of different genres.
We all love Street Fighter.
There's a lot of shmups, shoot 'em ups, vertically scrolling shoot 'em ups, bullet hell shooters, I think they like to call them, not those Japanese ones.
I thought you said smut for a minute. There's a lot of smut on there.
I was just about to place an order for that. Yeah.
I'll have 2, sod it.
One for each hand.
It's taking Pandora's box to a literal sense, that is. And yes, sitting at home, yes, we did go there.
It's always going to happen.
Yeah. And when you say, you found a little gem on the shore, we're not talking about lettuce, are we?
No, mate. Don't do lettuce.
Yeah, I should have left that one alone. Moving swiftly on. Nath.
I just got that, Christ.
So you mentioned it about 5 minutes ago. I thought I'd just go back to that one. Nath, rescue us from this terrible hole we're in at the moment. What have you been playing?
So, what have I been playing? So, I've been playing a bit on the Switch. I downloaded a game called Squidlet from the Nintendo eShop, which is kind of like a Game Boy game, but a new Game Boy game, where you're a little squid and you just jump and ink your enemies. It's a really short game. You'd have it done in about 20 minutes, half an hour, but it's only £1.30, and that was quite fun, actually. I quite enjoyed that. It looks quite a cool little game. I've also played The Punisher on the Mega Drive this week because I fancied a bit of that, and that's a bit more of a gory Streets of Rage, but yeah, quite a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. I got right to the final boss and then ended up dying, which is very frustrating, but that's on my first go, so I can't really complain with that.
On your first go?
Yeah, on my first go. I got to the final boss. So, yeah, not the hardest game. It's very much like I say, like Streets of Rage, but you have bits where you can just pull out your gun and just kind of leather people with a gun and pick up an assault rifle and do that as well. So it's a lot of fun. You also do this thing where you jump up in the air and throw a grenade on the ground and kill out your enemies, but I couldn't really figure out how to do that. So that was a lot of fun. And just before the stream, I was playing on Super Dodgeball on the NES. Yeah, I know.
I've never heard of that.
Whilst I was waiting for everyone to come in, I thought, well, I'm just going to play on Super Dodgeball, and then just got a bit carried away with it.
I've never heard the game noise of that in my mic before, in the background.
Have you not?
No, never.
Never heard a noise in your mic in the background. It's much better in stereo. But yeah, that's a cracking game. That's a lot of fun. It's on the Switch NES, I don't know what you want to call it, window. They're all free if you have a online account with the Switch. So you get all this, well, not all of them, but you get a load of NES games, a load of SNES games, and that's just one of the ones that I just really gravitate towards. So yeah, a lot of fun with some 8-bit, 16-bit style systems. Yeah.
On the subject, just very quickly, because I was reading about it last night. A lot of people are complaining about some of the input lag on the Switch when they're playing those sort of games, those NES, SNES ones. Have you noticed anything like that at all? Or
well, this one particular, the one that I was playing, Super Dodgeball, some of the pixels don't kind of lay out properly. They're a bit kind of all over the place. So you kind of have it and then they'll kind of disappear where they should be there. So it's not perfect. But I suppose that's the thing you get with emulation, really, over having original hardware that's programmed to run it, where you'll always have little bugs in the system.
Yeah.
That's the only one I've really noticed it on. I haven't really noticed it on any of the others, to be honest. But
I think some people complained about the Mega Drive collection that got released on the Switch.
Oh, I've got that. I didn't notice any problems.
And some people were saying that the Sonic was terrible.
What did I play on that? I don't think I played Sonic on that. I think, because this gives you a list of kind of catalogues, isn't it? It's set out like a bedroom, and you have like kind of a fake TV and a fake Mega Drive, and you can choose the game off the shelf and load it into the machine. I don't think I ever played Sonic on that. I played Streets of Rage 3, I think, and that sounded okay. I just got lines at the side, though, because obviously the aspect ratio's off. So
I did bring it up because they were saying that, somebody used to play Sonic quite a lot. They basically gave him the controller and, say just play that, and within 30 seconds he said, "What the hell's wrong with this game?" So I don't know. But,
was it all right in that? Just David Birdsall?
Well, then you got
I called him Dizzy in the chat the other night, and he wasn't very happy with that.
David Dizzy Birdsall.
He sort of came in and he said, "Hello, everybody." I said, "All right, Dizzy."
He now has a voodoo doll of you, by the way.
You are, sorry. You are.
There's a voodoo doll of you.
There's a voodoo doll of you now, so if you feel a stabbing pain in your back.
I wonder what that was. I thought it was sciatica. Hello, Dave, if you're listening. I'm sure you are. Rob, once again, dig us out of a hole. What have you been playing?
Oh, dear, where do we start? It's quite a long list, sorry. Xbox indie games, let's do those first. I've been playing one called Thunderpaw, which is a very 8-bit style looking... yes, you do play as a dog with a large gun, and you have to shoot every animal in a section of a level before you can move off of it. And then every fourth one you do, you have a boss at the end of it. Played that. That was quite fun, actually. I enjoyed that one. I also played another Xbox indie game, which was very recently, called Duck Souls Plus, which is another, again, 8-bit style indie platformer. Very tricky platforming, actually. I thought you could get through this game in under an hour. Some people have been reported to do that, but then level 85 happened, shall we say, and we'll leave it at that. I played a couple of Guitar Hero games. I got the plastic guitar out and enjoyed those for a bit. The Van Halen one was actually surprisingly a lot better than I thought it would be. But the Guitar Hero Greatest Hits I can see why it's not bought by many and quite uncommon, because it's a proper rip-off. It's literally exactly what it says. They have absolutely just dragged songs from all the other ones. But what's really annoying is they've not even picked some of the good ones as well. It's literally like, we've got licenses for these still. We'll use them and quickly knock out another game before they expire. So that one was really disappointing. I played a twin-stick shooter called Null Drifter. That's another indie game, actually. That was a lot of fun. That is very much more in the style of microcomputers, actually, in its appearance, actually. That was a lot of fun, but the 1000G was done in 41 minutes because I streamed it. That's why I know the precise time. We have... I'm nearly there. I'm going to save the best one to last, actually. I played Power Rangers Battle for the Grid, which is a one-on-one fight. Well, no, it's not one-on-one fighter. It's a 3-on-3 tag team fighter. Unfortunately, it doesn't offer anything special outside of the genre. I played Dead Space 2, finished that. I streamed 3.5 hours, 2 nights running, and finished that. Yeah, that is a lot of fun. It was, to quote Eddie when I messaged him about finishing it, it is supposedly a better game, and it is a better game than the first one, but the atmospherics are better in the first one. So if they had a combination of the two, that would be brilliant. But I don't know. Dead Space 3 will be next. And then finally, because everybody loves a pinball game, I was watching one of Dane's streams, and he had 2 guests on, and they were talking about owning Game Pass and a game called Demon's Tilt, which is a pinball game, as I've already mentioned. And I had one go of it, and it was, how not every pinball game's great, but a lot of pinball games that are good have that one more go factor about it. One more go. And the day that I streamed Null Drifter and finished that, I thought, well, 40 minutes, that's a crap stream. I'll do something else. I thought, right, I've downloaded that Demon's Tilt. I'll play it. 3 hours later, I'm still playing it. It's absolutely fantastic. It's only one table, but it's one of those tables that's got flippers at 3 levels. You know what I mean? Honestly, absolutely flipping brilliant. Really is.
Flipping brilliant.
Yes.
Pun intended.
Had to get that one. He was saving the best to last.
That was actually an accident. I just didn't want to say effing, if you get what I mean. But it is effing brilliant. And if you've got Game Pass, get it. And at the moment, you can buy Xbox Ultimate Game Pass for a month for £1 if you haven't. By the way, I'm not endorsed by Xbox here, by the way. I'm just saying that if you've never had Xbox Ultimate Game Pass thing, which is live and Game Pass, they're doing an offer where you can have it for only £1 for a month. So I would advise you spend that £1 and play Demon's Tilt. Seriously, honestly, it's awesome. You
can't spend it anywhere else, so it's worth doing that, isn't it, really? Just remind us, Rob, when you do these streams again, because you mentioned it before, but I think as you've sort of spoken about it there, plug it away, mate. Go on, when do you do it?
It's just I call it TNT at TNT, so it's Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10:30. It was meant to be around work, and that's just a little bit of a softer, what's the forgetting the phrasing for that, but yeah, a bit of a touchy area, that's the one. Because I'm not actually at work and haven't been for a while, but yeah, it was to fit around work, so hopefully when I get back to work I can keep that schedule up, because people are actually now dropping in at that time. It's slow and steady, but they are getting there, and Planet Retro is my biggest fan, I think, because he's turned up for everyone, so thank you, Al.
I don't think Al goes to sleep. He's everywhere.
I was going to say, the man never sleeps, does he?
Yeah.
I was going to say, I streamed, over 2 nights, 3.5 times 2, 7 hours worth of Dead Space 2, and I think he missed the ending. Of all things, he missed the ending last night because he fell asleep.
He'd been awake for 4 days.
He watched nearly 7 hours of me playing Dead Space 2 and fell asleep for the ending. Bless him.
Which streaming platform are you using, mate?
I use Mixer. I'm not going to lie, it's because it's easy for me. It's in the Xbox One already. It's just a case of starting a game on your Xbox One and going to the tab and press start broadcast. So that's why I use Mixer, because I don't have to set up any other way. But it suits me. And yeah, I was going to say I've got plenty of Xbox stuff, so it's not an issue.
There you go. Yeah, lovely. Right. Well, I've been playing very little this week, to be honest with you. In fact, the only game I've been playing is Colin McRae's Dirt on the 360.
Right.
Yeah, that's
it. I love a good rally game, I must admit. I think you don't know, don't you, Rob?
I like them, but there's probably the genre I'm the worst at, and by genre I mean specifically rally games in driving. I really am awful at them, but I do actually enjoy them at the same time.
It's the learning curve on it, because I think I was sort of playing around with it, and I think I think it was a second stage of the very first sort of part of it, which is a rally stage. And of course, me being me, just floored it and end up sort of careering down the mountain. And you literally are careering down the mountain. You go over the edge, that's it, you've gone. But and so I end up finishing 20th out of 20. But by the third time I'd done it, I'd actually finished first. So you get used to what you do, rather than sort of airing off like a mad lunatic. You just sort of take your time and take the corners properly, and don't put your foot down all the way. You can go at a certain speed and follow the guidance that you're given. So from that point of view, there was a good learning curve on it. So I did enjoy playing it, and I certainly put a bit more time into it.
Unfortunately, my rally learning curve is down. It doesn't. You say there's a curve, but mine goes down and not up.
I was going to say, if you go down the mountain, surely, if you go over the edge, you get there quicker. So you should have come first in the first run.
Not the finish line's at the top, Nathan.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I mean. I thought he was going down the mountain to the finish.
No, he was actually good. Yeah, you're going up the mountain on that one, aren't you, of course?
Snakes and ladders.
Discussing the laws of physics. If I drive off the edge of a cliff, will I go down or up? Now, I'm sure more intelligent podcasts than ourselves will be discussing that at great length in the future. Speaking of discussing things at great length, that was what we've been playing. So let's move on to one of our two subjects which we're going to quick chat about beforehand. Just want to before we get to that, I just want to say thanks very much to everybody who's sort of suggested some ideas for sort of topics we can discuss, and of the ones that we can use, I am sort of keeping the list, and hopefully at some point in the future we'll just try and do some of those. Also as well, I think maybe not this episode, but possibly the next one, I might turn the tables on those of you who are listening and then leaving comments and ask you a question to provide some interaction. We'll probably come toward the end of next week's podcast, if I remember to do it. But ideally to turn the tables on you a bit and have you think about something and give us some responses to that, and then the episode of that, perhaps we can respond to that during the course of the conversation. But more on that a bit later anyway. Right, so Rob mentioned this earlier when we were discussing this before we came on to recording, and I think it's probably a conversation or a thought that most gamers have had, depending on what their collections are and what they class as an old system or a new system. It's where you draw the line in terms of what is retro and what isn't. Yeah, it's that hot potato. We've all been there, we've all discussed it, we've all thought about it, and I'm just going to throw something at the deep end. Nath.
Thanks very much.
I'm ready for the deep end, bring it on.
So when we kind of mentioned this beforehand, I was kind of thinking of this myself, and kind of two things kind of stuck out for me with retro. I mean, retro can be, well, three actually. Retro can be just what you remember playing back from your childhood. You can draw a line in the sand and say, you know, as a kid, I played these systems, and as an adult, I play more this, so it doesn't hold the same kind of nostalgia as it did me back as a child. You could just draw a straight line through the year 2000 and say anything last decade is retro, because that's pretty much, I think, the Dreamcast and Saturn and things like that came out before then. And those are the consoles I kind of consider more retro. Or probably the biggest one for me is more around kind of operating systems, to go kind of a bit more particular in it. Because games from back in the day were designed so everything was kind of on the game to actually play it, and the system just had to recognise it. New games, you have kind of an operating system on there, and the operating system will read the game rather than the other way around. The game will be fed into the system, because obviously with the old cartridge-based media, that's how it's built, that's how it's designed, and I think anything with an operating system, anything kind of newer than that, certainly with the newer systems where they constantly update the operating systems, things like that, I would not class anything like that as new, or certainly anything that has to have an updated system, because if systems need an update or have to connect to the internet to constantly update themselves, they're not retro for me.
Sure.
I'll go away from that, to be honest. As in, I don't know, I think you could say a system that is no longer being produced, that could be classed as retro. You could even say, and probably Rob will argue with me here, when it stops producing games, when games are stopped producing for that system. And I'm talking about official releases, not like homegrown stuff. Those are two possibilities. You know, I mean, but then you would be saying, well, is the PS3 retro, the Xbox 360?
No, but 360 retro, which is not.
It's
so,
not.
Yeah.
Here we go. Seconds out.
See, I might upset Sean in a minute, so go on, mate. Keep going.
Well, that's about it, really. I mean, obviously we know for definite what systems are retro. You know, obviously cartridge-based systems, they're now defunct, if you like. So, you know, they can be classed as retro. Tape-based games, disc-based games, as in floppy disks. But yeah, it is really kind of hard to distinguish, you know, a modern retro, if you like. So, but if I'm going to stick my neck on line, I would favour when the system stops being produced. Second, I'd favour when official software releases have ceased on that system. That's my 2 pence worth.
I'm going to come back.
Apart, Rob.
I'm going to come back in each turn just to ask another question on that one when Rob's had his say. So where do you sort of draw the line, Rob?
Mate, to be honest with you, I think the last system that I can really think of and call as retro was probably perhaps the PS1. I think, unfortunately, this is where, you know, people disagree with me a lot, but I don't think the PS2 is quite retro. Certainly anything from that sort of era, GameCube, Dreamcast, none of that is retro. I think the Saturn is, because the Saturn was obviously alongside the PS1. But you see, I'm very much of the opinion that, like, in the case of the PlayStation 2, I mean, when people say to me, yeah, but it's 20 years old, it's retro, I'm saying, no, forget the age. Age is not a good example. I've got a spare TV in my bedroom that is nearly 20 years old. It's a flat screen. All right, it's not HD. It's 1080p or whatever. You're telling me my TV's in there is retro because it's nearly 20 years old?
I wouldn't dare.
Our football shirts that were released in 2000 retro. I mean, they're very similar to today's age, but I know they don't look the same. But to me, they don't look retro. If you want to go to that argument, you need to go early 90s before them things start looking retro. So for me, like PS2 is not retro because it doesn't look it as a console. You stick it on your TV unit under your TV, it fits. It's not of that age where it looks out of place. Again, GameCube, PS2, the last games that they had released were certainly PS2. The last game it had released was made in 2014. That's only 6 years ago. So how can a console that had a game 6 years ago be considered retro? Where I would kind of think that the retro line kicks in is when the games start to look dated. Like all of the games on the PlayStation 1, nearly all of them are starting to look dated. Like the Resident Evils that they had on there, they've been remastered. They look very blocky back in the day. Old Lara Croft and her pointy boobs and turning like a tank. You know what I mean? She turns a lot smoothly and, they're a bit more curvaceous now. We can get a little bit more excited about them. But, for me, a console that was just because it was 20 years ago, that don't make it retro. Again, I think it's more down to the games on it, things like that, and almost looking at the thing as well sometimes.
So, I mean, I suppose you're sticking your line in about the PS1 then, you say?
PS1's still retro, yeah.
What about you, Nathan? If you would have, had to draw a line in the sand, where would you sort of put that there? Would you go beyond that, or would you go before that?
Yeah, so I would agree with Rob in the fact that I don't think the PS2 really is particularly retro. I think the PS2, for the fact that it had kind of a DVD player built in, it obviously has an operating system. And I think when a system kind of has that and has extra features and things like that, when it's not solely there to kind of play games, then it becomes kind of something else. And I know you could probably say that the PlayStation 1 could play like CDRs and things like that, and you can get CDR movies, but that was almost like an added extra onto the system, and it wasn't built for doing that, whereas the PlayStation 2 obviously had the DVD player built in with it, an operating system, so it could do that. Even the Xbox as well, to that degree, they both can have operating systems. So yeah, I'm kind of agree with that. As for games looking dated, it's difficult because you have modern games or games that are specifically made to kind of look dated. Though I do I get what Rob's saying with regards to it. That's more of
a very recent thing, though, isn't it? That's only the last, 5 years max?
Yeah,
but again,
true.
Again, if you go to look at some of the graphics of some of the stuff on the PlayStation 2, some of the graphics on that system achieved can still be very much relatable to stuff we're getting now. I mean, not maybe right now, but maybe a couple of years ago. You know what I mean? Some of the later games in that achieved that nearly, or certainly looked impressive as that.
I would say some of the later games on things like the PlayStation are almost comparable to some of the PlayStation 2 games, like Final Fantasy 9. I thought the graphics on that were stunning. In the background, kind of animations, things like that, looked really, really, really good. And I think that graphics on that wouldn't have been out of place on the PlayStation 2, if I'm completely honest. But yeah, it's just
very early days.
Yeah, but I'd say it's difficult to kind of draw a line in the sand. And when we say about game release dates, I think Rob's right on that, because I was thinking, when I was thinking about this, the Dreamcast and what Sean was saying about when they start making media for the system, there's a game that I've come across recently, a game called Under Defeat, which is a game on the Dreamcast, and I think that was released on the Dreamcast. I think it was in 2005. I'm sure if I'm wrong, someone will correct me. I'm sure Dylan will. But yeah, I think it was like 2005, 2006. It's actually a licensed game released on the Dreamcast, so well after they stopped making games for the system. So it's very kind of difficult to say, because there's always sometimes things in the background that just get released or finally finished off for a system.
Yeah, because that's the sort of same thing we were discussing last week about the Just Dance games on the Wii, wasn't it?
Yeah.
They keep coming out, and that system is still technically alive because of it.
Yeah, exactly. So the Wii, by virtue of that, will never be retro.
Well, if you look at the 360 had FIFA 19 on it. That was the last FIFA game on the 360, FIFA 19.
Yeah.
They didn't make 20. They decided to stop.
But I still maintain for someone of kind of my age, with the way that games were built, well, there's been a massive kind of shift to the way that everything was encoded on the game. So when it put it in the system was set up to run a certain way to read that game. It's completely layman's terms of it. I'm sure I'm butchering it entirely, but I'm hoping it makes sense. But everything was contained in that one cartridge, so the system could understand and then output the stuff. The modern games are very much the system will just read the information's there and then put out the stuff rather than the other way around.
Yeah, I mean, you made that point about the Dreamcast game, but I mean, by that time the Dreamcast was long dead in the water anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So why a commercial game came out for it? Probably I would say because the PlayStation 2 came out in 2001, I think, and the GameCube was 2002, 3, and the Xbox not long after that. So yeah, I mean the Dreamcast was well and truly done by that point.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
It's its downfall was the reason for that, and it's easy to make games for, wasn't it? That's its downfall. Yeah, it could be easily pirated, easily.
Oh, right.
Well, the Dreamcast?
Yeah.
I thought it was the fact that they couldn't get any publishers on board to actually make games for it because they found it too complicated.
There was that too. There was many downfalls for the Dreamcast, but one of them is you could pirate games for it really easily.
Certainly the early models, yeah.
And the other one was that they sponsored Arsenal. So that was a... Yeah, they get that one. Okay, that's a really good answer, Nate. I didn't know that about the Dreamcast, so I've certainly learned something about that as well. Sean, same to you. Where would you sort of draw that line?
And have I offended you? I'm sorry. I know you love the PS2.
It's me bashing him the other night, and you're bashing him tonight.
I could bash you as well. The GameCube's not retro.
Did I say the GameCube was retro?
You got one, didn't you? No,
I didn't say it was retro, though, did I?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought you just liked it. I thought you liked it, so therefore,
I like it, but I didn't say it was retro.
Sean hasn't said the PS2's retro yet, so let's see if I have offended him.
I'm pretty sure he was.
You see, I do believe it is. I mean, from my understanding, Rob, that you're saying then that systems that look retro, so you're going on more aesthetics than lifespan and stuff like that?
Oh, the sex of the console, the games, how they look, and the fact that even though 20 years is a long time, it's actually not that old in comparison to some others.
Right.
Did you just say the sex of the console?
I thought
That's what I heard. Freudian slip.
He did say the sex of the console, didn't he?
Yeah. That's what I thought he said.
How do you sex a console? You open its lid?
Honestly, mate, that's another podcast in itself, Yeah, games consoles I have slept with. Yeah. Sorry, Sean, I thought I heard something there.
But yeah, I mean, you've got take for instance retro gaming fairs. There's PS2, there's Dreamcast, there's GameCube. These are retro systems.
It's called a games market. It's not called a retro games market. It's Doncaster Games Market. They even advertise it as retro and modern. Sorry, dude.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Doncaster.
To be fair, they did have Switch games.
Doncaster Games Market. Yeah, I could buy Xbox One games there as well. I did actually.
I'm sure they have got markets. They do call retro gaming markets, though. I'm
Yeah.
sure that there's some of them. I don't know what London's called.
The thing is, you can tell anyone it's a retro games market, they'll still take anything along.
Yeah, I think it's more. I think it's run by companies which have got the word retro in their title, but I think I think sort of the official term for them is video games market.
Yeah,
it's just gaming market.
Yeah,
they want as much to be sold there as possible. So why niche it?
Yeah. I still believe that if console stopped selling, they stopped making the console, I should say, and the games as well, then I do believe it's retro. I mean, I know this is subjective as well. I always remember a Facebook post by Saw Funds, and they had some kind of special edition PS3 game, and I always remember them basically saying, we know it's not quite retro yet. But we're just going to put this out here. But they were basically saying, it's close to being retro. Again, I know it's very subjective, isn't it? You know, like I said, me personally, I would definitely go on the timeline of the console, because retro, in my eyes, retro means in the past. It's old, not old as such, but it's I don't know how to word it, but for me, anything that's now not producing would be classed as retro in my eyes.
What interests me with what you're saying, kind of going on from there, and systems and that, I always find as a collector, if you've got like the previous system, the games for that go through the floor, but when they bring out the next system on, that's when they start to climb. That's when they become desirable. Maybe that is the kind of timescales you're looking at. So not the previous system, not the prior system to the one that's current, but the one before that is when the system is considered retro. Because obviously a new system comes out, system before, nobody really has an interest in it, all the games kind of plummet. And then when the next system come out, they slowly start to climb up. That's certainly what I found with games as a collector. So maybe that has something to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you all make incredibly convincing arguments for where you would sort of do that. Before I heard all you all speak, obviously because I haven't had my say on this, so I'm not, being influenced by what you've said there. A lot of it makes perfect sense to me. I would be sort of somewhere between the PlayStation 1 and the Dreamcast as being right at that very end of the line. I don't think the PlayStation 2 can be classed as retro yet, and anything after that. I think any system before then, because you still had a gap between when the Dreamcast came out and when you hit that new generation of consoles, of probably a couple of years. So the fact nothing came out after the Dreamcast for a period of time, I would be drawing that line there, probably around about 1999, 2000, and everything before that is I would be classing as retro.
It's just one of these things, isn't it? It really is going to be down to the person at the end of the day. I think. I mean, it'd be interesting to just hear from as many people as possible where their line is. Yeah, but just for example, I've got to be honest with you, I've looked up the word retro on my phone definition while we've been talking. Imitative of a style or fashion from recent past.
From recent past?
How recent is the past,
Yeah.
So, do you know what I mean? It is just down to the person, isn't it? It really is.
Is that an Oxford English Dictionary definition?
I don't know, whatever Google threw up.
I just wonder if it's worth writing to Susie Dent at Countdown and saying, what the bloody are you playing at here? What the hell does this mean?
At least it was an Urban Dictionary, I suppose.
Can we just thank Susie Dent for listening, by the way? Thank you.
Yeah. Fan of the show, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, many people...
You've also got a difference there now. You could say, right, then we've got retro gaming. What about vintage gaming? We've got vintage consoles.
Oh, there we go.
I know we're opening up a can of worms again, but
just to wind them up.
So
I would go the micros.
Vintage, I would class as 70s, like the 70s, early 80s, probably. Before
anything, basically not. Anything that's 8-bit and before that isn't a Master System or a Game Gear or a Game Boy, anything that isn't Nintendo or Sega that's 8-bit and before, that's got to be vintage.
Does it have wood in the construction?
Was it personally autographed by Noah?
Do you need two people to carry it home?
I work on the basis if you've got retro and then going back proper retro and then old.
Antique,
yeah. But joking apart, these are in some ways the antiques of the future.
Yeah.
Or just me on that one. I'm just sort of thinking because of the appreciation in value over the years, and those have been collected for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, or whatever. We'll know that the older the machines you get, the more expensive these things are now getting to pick up. I mean, I was looking at Commodore 64s earlier. On eBay. I mean, eBay is a tool, but I mean, they were selling for anything between £120 and £200.
Yeah.
I was looking at them and ruining the decision not to buy one from Doncaster.
I was surprised that the Saturns were 75 quid off CEX, which is dearer than the Dreamcast.
£74 too much.
And, with all due respect to Saturn fans, I'm sorry, but the Dreamcast is a better console. But I still, why is it dearer?
You could buy a Wii for that, much better value.
Look, just stop showing off because you've hit a gold mine all of a sudden, all right?
I've stopped, sort of jumping around, rubbing my hands and singing, so that's all right.
When I traded in 2 copies of Wii Sports Box for £9, I thought I was each trade value. I thought I was on for a winner. Now they're worth 50 quid each. Cash. If only I'd held on for a few months.
And they laughed at me with those horse games I used to buy. Now they're worth 3 times as much, £1.50 each. There we go.
Ross is going around in a trench coat with loads of copies of Wii Sports underneath. Boy, mate.
Just wait till we see Russ on Antiques Roadshow.
I would love that.
One of these for years.
Russ takes a Wii on Antique Roadshow. That would be the best TV I'd seen in my whole life.
I tell you something, I'm getting to a touchy area, but now we mentioned that, it can't be that time I saw a woman on Antiques Roadshow with this painting, and it was valued at something in the region of about £100,000, and it was by Rolf Harris. But this was about 3 weeks before he got arrested.
Sold it.
And I don't know whether she did or not, but it was just a painting, and the guy said, "Oh yeah, well, it's very, very collectible." He said, "Yeah, £100,000." I was like, "Oh, really?" And then 3 weeks later, he got arrested.
I love that show when people took something in, they thought it was going to be worth a fortune, and the geezer would go, "It's worth about £10 to £15," and you could just see the person get crushed.
Yeah, that'll be me with the Wii.
I saw somebody on there with one of those what are they called? Those light things that kind of spill out, the little fibre optic things.
Lamps.
No, fibre optic. The fibre optic things that kind of change colour with all the little strands in. I'm sure somebody took one of them on Antiques Roadshow before. I could not believe.
Lads, this is like our worst tangent ever. We're talking about antiques on a gaming podcast. All right.
Russ goes on there with a Wii.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're talking about antiques. Technically, me and Sean are halfway there already.
Jesus Christ.
More than the items.
Oh dear. Right. So that was quite good. If you'd like to let us know what you think about where you would draw a retro timeline in there, do pop a comment below, and again we'll have a look at those. If there's any interesting ones next week, and
please
sort
do
of revisit that. Yeah.
I would love to hear everybody's line of where the retro hits. So anybody in the comments, please answer that question.
That would be really good to see.
Honestly, genuinely fascinated by this because it's come up a lot with conversations I've been having in the last week or so.
So, Rob, what were our opinion? Can we say?
I can't remember. I think he was leaning more towards that the PS2 was, again, because it was age, which is probably why I was telling him it wasn't.
Because you're argumentative.
Because if we're having a conversation longer than 2 minutes, it's generally because we disagree. It's not like, is this game good? Yeah, I agree. Is this game good? No, it's rubbish. What?
He's probably suffering from sleep deprivation, so that's.
I don't sleep anyway.
Right, so sort of carrying on that theme, we talked about retro timeline. Great. So, and again, this is something we spoke about beforehand, because believe it or not, when we got together tonight, we had no idea what we were going to talk about. That's most weeks usually. So if you think this is a really slick production, think again. We were talking about what sort of media that you prefer in terms of how you like the sort of media games come on. Is it CDs? Is it DVDs? Is it cartridges? Is it tapes? Do you whittle your own out of wood to go in your old wood consoles from the 70s? I think we'll start off on this one with Rob.
What do I prefer?
Yes, that was the question.
For space reasons, it'll have to be obviously with the Xbox 360, just having the disc, because you can get a hell of a lot more on a shelf. But that's just a space thing. I mean, I love the cartridge. I really do. There's nothing more, nostalgic and retro than holding a cartridge and putting that into your system. And of course, it's instant. It's more reliable in the long term, isn't it? You're less likely to. I know you can get damage to the pins and all that sort of stuff, but you're more likely to scratch a disc at the same time. Even just by accident, as careful as you can be at times. But I absolutely love a cartridge. But the discs are an absolute space saver. I'm not so keen on the little cards that Nintendo do and then putting them in those boxes like the Switch do. I just think, that's a weird box for something so small, and generally a lot of the time there's no paperwork in there. Not a big fan of those. And don't get me started on anything stored in a cardboard box.
That was a sigh.
Anything stored in a cardboard box. Why put it in a toolbox like that when you can, like with the DS, half the size? Why not have it that tall? Then you can get more
fat than the DS.
Yeah.
But as narrow. Basically, why can't you put a Switch game in an American in an American DS box? Wouldn't that be more? You could get more on a shelf. I don't know.
No. Isn't the Vita the same size?
Yeah.
I don't get the PSP boxes as well. I'm not a fan of those. That shape. I don't know why. I prefer, if it's a DVD box, a CD box, or a cartridge. Those three. I love all three.
I sense some trouble brewing when we get round to Nathan in a minute.
I've got nothing wrong with them being on those little cards. I just find it weird that they have an extra tool box for something so short. Go on, fire at me.
No. I've got to let Sean go first.
Yeah, let's go to Sean and let Nathan wind himself up a bit more, and then he can have a go there.
I'm trying to upset everybody tonight. I've already called the PS2 not retro to Sean.
Go on then, Sean. What do you reckon?
I've got to go with cassettes, mate. I've got to go with old tapes. I love them. There's just something about them. I've got some in front of me here. Come on, loading times were ridiculous on them. But I just find them really nice. The small cases appeal to me more rather than the larger ones. I'm not really keen on the big box style, like the Amiga games came in, the PC games.
Cardboard.
Far too much room up. Yeah, cardboard. But yeah, I like the little cassette. Commodore. Obviously, is the ones that I have most of, and I've even got a custom-built shelf in my lockup, which you've seen, haven't you? Especially for those little cassettes.
Yeah, we've all seen it. Yeah,
that's the gingerbread block up.
The other thing I'd like to ask is, I'm someone that just doesn't collect them because, unfortunately, I went through the arcade route and missed the whole cassette period, basically, when it came to gaming. I would worry collecting them now that a lot of them wouldn't work because obviously tapes are worse for deteriorating than other media.
Yeah.
I mean, do you find like you play a game a couple of years ago and then you go and play it again, that 2 years later and it wouldn't work because it's just degraded? I mean, is it a case of looking after them, like in a well-heated room or something?
Yeah, I mean, like with anything really, you've got to look after it. I don't believe they do deteriorate that much, Rob. To be honest, I'm looking at one now. It looks absolutely fine.
I think it's more what's on the tape, on the actual, I forget what the material's called, the actual bit that wheels round. Does that, wear away or does that stop working? The tape itself will go round, but that will have faded away.
Strip, isn't
it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It'll be the same with VHS. Same with VHS tapes.
Yeah. Well, that's on the recorder, that's on the tape deck itself, isn't it? Not the actual cassette. Or am I thinking of something else? What? Rob?
What's that, mate? Sorry?
Which metallic bit are we talking?
The actual
tape.
Is
that about a metallic tape? The metallic tape. Magnetic tape.
Brown.
You'd
have that brown stuff that's called up inside the tape.
That actually makes it loaded. That's what I mean. Will it become unreadable just because of its age? That's what I'd worry about.
Put a big next to it.
Not necessarily. The problem with tape is it's easily creased, and as we all know from many a time when they can get spooled up, they get caught and wrapped around the tape heads, and that's when you've got big problems. But to be fair, I mean I haven't bought one single bad cassette tape. To be honest, Rob, they all look in really good condition. So it's like it's like you said, it depends how well they're looked after.
I say that's just my worries from an outsider as such,
Yeah.
But again, for storage, I can imagine tapes are absolutely fantastic as well. Yeah, they don't take up a lot of room at all.
To be honest, I'd say your your actual cassette recorder, your cassette player, is more likely to worsen over time.
Yeah, yeah. I've got 5 of them for my Commodore 64. I'm not joking. I've got 5 different data cassettes just in case. If your game don't load on it, I can always then go and try another one. And then by the time I get to number 5, it don't load. Then I'm not very happy.
It's funny you say that, because I was watching again Dane's stream a couple of nights ago, and he had an overbug on it, and he's got 4 of the same type of Amiga, because sometimes it won't work in a couple of them, but it'll then play in another one.
Yeah.
So I know what you mean, but then again, the next tape may not play in the one that just played a tape, but it might work in one of the ones that didn't play that tape. So I know what you're on about. So, it's the second time I've heard of that now.
Go on then, he's been building himself up. Go on, Nathan.
Come on.
Go on then, Nathan.
No, I'm interested to hear what other people say with regards to it. So, I'm very much the same. I really like cartridges, and the good thing about collecting cartridges is you don't have to worry about boxes if you don't want to, really. Certainly like the Super Nintendo ones, they've got a nice... What, sorry?
Don't worry about the boxes.
You don't have to worry about the boxes if you don't want to.
I'm glad I was sitting down.
Well, no, I don't mind the cardboard boxes. I mean, the price of cardboard is ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, if you want to buy something...
Sorry, I thought you meant like with Mega Drive as well. Sorry. Yeah, cardboard's crap.
Yeah, no, what I'm saying is like the SNES games, for instance, you don't have to connect the boxes for those because they've got a nice picture on them, a nice massive picture. Mega Drives, not so much. They look a bit naff without the cases. Master System look absolutely awful without the cases. But I do think that they just, the feel of them, the big chunkiness of them, they kind of mean more to me than CDs. I mean, you put a CD in, you brush it, and you get a bit of scuff on it, that's not going to work. Or you get annoyed at FIFA and kick the system and you have a nice big round scrape on it. That's never happened to me before.
You deserve that.
Ruined. Yeah, but I like cartridges. I much prefer them over CD media. What you're saying about the little ones for the Switch, particularly, I think that's kind of more just the market that we're in, really. I think
it's more the completing box and then having to store it in the box on your shelf because we all like to have them displayed,
Not necessarily that, but for the size of it. I think that people, everything kind of has to be about DVD size. Things have to be kind of like DVD size, or people just think it's just empty. Which it is a waste of plastic, and when you're looking at kind of, and environmentally, yes, it is a bit of a waste, but I like having a picture. I kind of see it in the same way that, like, people prefer vinyls than they do to CDs. I mean, the artwork on vinyls, it's almost like a picture. You could put it on the wall, whereas a CD, it's like, oh, what's this little thing, and throw it away. Plus, all CD cases, they just crack. I mean, let's face it, the Dreamcast ones, their cases are bloody terrible. They will disintegrate. Saturn are even worse. They're cardboard and plastic, so they generally are.
I mean, how they managed to screw that one up, I don't know. I mean,
it looks like some child made it in, like, design and technology in high school, isn't it? It's like, we've got this plastic case, let's cover it in glue and then just slap this bit of cardboard on it, and then like 20 years later you kind of open it and it just falls apart in your hands.
I mean, everything about the Saturn, it is the clown car of consoles.
I like the Saturn. I just think that they could have done a much better job with the cases, and I think I'm not alone in that, really. Everyone does. But cardboard, I mean, like, I'm going to disagree on cardboard because I think the things just look nicer in cardboard than they do in plastic. I mean, if you've got like a PlayStation 1 game, any kind of scuffing on the cover, unless you have it in a plastic bag to protect it, you take it off, put it on the shelf, it will scuff up. That will happen a bit with cardboard, but it just looks sleeker. I think it looks nice. And very much with Sean on the cassettes. Cassettes are brilliant. And I suppose, unless you get a big magnet and just wave it over the cassettes, and they're generally okay. I mean, if they haven't been kept out in the damp, if they've been kept in a shed and they've gone mouldy or something like that, then the tape inside is going to ruin. It's magnetic tape. It's not whatever I said before. But I much like cartridges over I do CD media. I think CD media is really naff. And also for the point that there's such a limit now on CD media. It went from being that cartridges couldn't hold the required information, so you had to go onto CDs because they could hold so much more. now you're getting games that come on like 2-3 CDs. I mean, that's the reason Final Fantasy didn't come out on the N64 and really kind of screwed Nintendo in that respect. That's why it came on a PlayStation, because it was too big to put on a cartridge.
You can't swap cartridges around, halfway through the game. Yeah.
Exactly. And now it's gone very much the other way. The CDs are just cheap, and SD cards like you have for the Switch will hold much more data, and therefore they're more expensive to produce, they cost more, people complain about that, but actually, if I put a game in my Switch, it's ready to go. If it has to do an update, it takes about 5 seconds. If I put a game in the Xbox, it will have to update the system, then it will have to download the game, and it just takes forever. Sorry, Rob, but it really does.
Hang on a minute, we were talking about what they were stored in, rather than the actual media. That's what I was saying about the Switch boxes. Why can't you put a Switch game in a 3DS box? Why does it have to be that tall and take up that space?
Because they've run out of DS boxes.
Yeah, basically.
I think they've probably got the same amount of plastic in them. If you look at them, they've probably got about the same amount of plastic actually in them. I would wager.
And yet you need to have more shelves because they're taller. That's what I mean. I've got 2 units here side by side. I've got a unit full of Xbox 360 stuff and a unit full of PlayStation stuff. And obviously there's more shelves next, on the PlayStation stuff, because PlayStation 1 stuff, because they're not as tall.
Yeah,
but did you say like the cardboard boxes, like to actually use? Because that baffles me, because they just deteriorate like nothing.
I think they look quite nice.
They do when they're new, but unfortunately, in about 5 years' time, they're not going to hold up to a DVD case. No. Yeah, but you try and find a mint SNES box nowadays. It's not easy in comparison.
No, but when you do find one, it looks so nice. That's the
big
thing.
word there is when.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. Obviously, the plastic ones are going to be more robust overall, but I think they just look very generic. I mean, you see them kind of laid out, boot sales thrown on the floor and things like that, and they just look like it's had a hard life. I mean, even in CX, the nice ones.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were still going.
No,
finished.
No, go on.
No, I was just saying, I'm totally with you with anything that loads instantly, like a cartridge, and if you say the Switch does instantly, then that's great. Anything, we all love less loading time, so if it can have none, then fantastic.
Yep.
Can't beat it.
I mean, my sort of, I do agree with Sean. I do love the old tapes. I really do like that sort of media. I do like the cardboard, but purely from an aesthetic point of view, it looks really good. When you find a pristine one or one in really good condition, it does look great. I do like the plastic boxes, the Master System and the Mega Drive stuff. I do like cartridges as well. I grew up with 2600, so for me, cartridges were the first thing I used. I love the tapes. Do I like the CDs? They look all right when you put them on a shelf. Got the boxes, all the boxes all sort of same colour and whatever. It looks great, dude. I like that, but I don't know. The SD cards for me, they're a bit sort of fiddly. I can see why people do lose things like that, but it's got to be, it's got to be tapes and cartridges for me over the CDs. I just think that's how if you're going to do retro gaming proper, that's how you do it.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Slight disclaimer as well with the Switch games, in case people don't know, they have actually given them a horrible flavour, so you can't put them in your mouth because you'd make you spit them out. They coated them with something so they taste rank. So disclaimer to everyone listening to this, by all means touch it to your tongue, but don't put the whole thing in your mouth.
We've all just learned Nave's tried to eat one before.
Well,
I heard it and I thought, I've got to try this, and it's absolutely true.
In the space of 24 hours, I've now learned that if you lick Switch cartridges, they taste horrible, and if you scratch the second disc of Gran Turismo 2, you get the smell of burning rubber.
Only on the initial release, not on the Platinum.
Yeah,
I learned that too.
Yeah. What? I don't know that.
Well, it was on Dane's chat last night. Somebody mentioned it, and there were 3 of them. Basically, all Novabug, Mr. Bads, and Danes all got their copies of Gran Turismo 2 out, and were scratching the disc and sniffing it.
It's supposed to smell like a pit lane or something.
Yeah. See, this is the problem when everything goes on lockdown. That is now classed as entertainment. Three men scratching discs and sniffing them. I'm joking apart. It was a fantastic stream last night. It really was.
I missed that part of it. Honestly, I can't believe I missed that.
It was really good. And again, it was. If you're interested in the 8-bit stuff, it was fantastic to watch. It really was. in terms of our chat, because we were having one, before I diverted and started promoting somebody else's channel, that was really quite fascinating. That we've all got slightly different opinions on that, and we can agree on certain things, but we can't agree on others. And that's the whole purpose of these conversations. I'm just wondering, because of the tape stuff, is that because did you grow up with the tape stuff, Nath, as well? Did you say?
Well, I actually, like I said in the stream, for what I did, my first console was the BBC Micro, but I actually had a floppy disk drive, so they were even worse. Floppy disks were just encased. It's effectively something as thin as cling film, I think. Slightly more robust inside, like something that's slightly thicker cling film. I'm really dissing it now, but those things, like you couldn't bend them even slightly, or the whole thing was ruined. On those discs, you had to be so careful with it. But with people I knew, like friends and things like that, they had the cassettes, and the cassette media, I really like it. It does kind of tick all the boxes in the sense of what I'm saying for space and things like that. It's compact. It has pretty cool designs on there. I mean, that's the quirky thing about the Spectrum, is the artwork on it was just so kind of in its time. It's almost like they lifted it out of the funnies in a newspaper, some of it, isn't it? Or alternatively, it's got some ridiculous, like, futuristic drawing, and the game is absolute trash, but the artwork on it's gorgeous. Yeah.
Because I completely forgot about the 3.5 inch and the 5 1/4 inch discs that we used to use on those sort of things. And I suppose, Sean, you would have grown up with the tapes as well, wouldn't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I did venture into disc a little bit with Commodore, but if I remember rightly, they were even back then they were more expensive. I think they were. I'm losing my memory here, but maybe like £5 more expensive than the cassette games.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
bearing in mind, on a little pocket money budget, it was just out of my price range. But yeah, I did own a disc drive at one point. They were a godsend, obviously, with loading times. I mean, back then I wasn't really interested in saving space because I didn't really collect anything. I just gamed. But yeah, the cassettes though, I just think they're really nice things. They are proper, nostalgia, if you like. Even smell of them. Not that I've got a fetish of smelling cassettes.
It's all right, mate. Don't worry about it.
There is nothing like smelling a new manual for a game.
We can do that. Smells of retro gaming could be another episode we could do in the future.
Scratch and sniff. Smell-o-vision.
I suppose, Rob, you sort of grew up with. You didn't grow up with the consoles at home, did you?
No, I spent my entire single-digit years and early double-figure years wanting what all my mates had. I basically wanted a Commodore 64 for years, just because the only mate that I used to go around and who had a computer had a Commodore 64, and I used to enjoy playing with them. So I bugged my parents for years. So, and I loved gaming, but I got into it through the arcades. I would look forward to every UK holiday just because I know there'd be some form of arcade there. I would look forward to going to my swimming lessons just because they would let me play the WrestleFest that was in the swimming pool building and have one go on that before I left. So I spent years and years basically just, where should we go this weekend? I would always say Southend-on-Sea, go to the coast because then I could probably have an hour in an arcade. Eventually my parents caved in. We come to an agreement because I was basically an annoying little bugger in the car. And they said, well, in that case, we'll get him a handheld. That'll keep him quiet on two fronts. He'll have a computer games console, and he'll shut up in the car. I swear that's why they did it. So I started with a Game Gear, and that was the first thing I ever finally had. And yes, it never actually went out to a park or anything with me. I had it in the car, and it had a cigarette adapter that had stretched from the front to the back. And then when I was at home, it was always plugged in. And I think when I was at home and it was always plugged in and I was playing it, they went, well, there's no harm in him having a home console because his Game Gear is just solidly plugged in and he's always playing it when he's got a chance. So I then went to the Mega Drive, but it wasn't for the want of trying. I did want a Commodore 64. It's quite funny. This is almost like a little bit of a tease, but a year or so after having a Game Gear, my dad went, "I've got a ZX Spectrum in the loft," and he brought it down. And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?" And he only had like 3 games, and the only one I can remember playing was Chucky Egg, and I loved that. That was a lot of fun. So yeah, that was just like a little kickback for me, you know. But yeah, it took me ages to get into gaming, like as in owning something.
Yeah, I mean, so we started the 2600 because I didn't have favourite cartridges. My friends all had Commodore 64, so I used to love the tapes and going through all those as well. And I think it's amazing because we mentioned the cardboard thing. And I've got to bring this up. I was talking about it, Sean, but I mean, yourself in particular, obviously, some of those tape games used to come in those giant boxes as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
So we had cardboard boxes then as well.
It's like big box PC games, isn't it?
Yeah, big box, Amiga and ST as well.
And it just have a normal floppy disk in it, wouldn't it? And it's like, what's the point in that?
Because they're amazing.
I mean, granted, some of those games used to come in like 12 discs, so you need the box big enough to stick something like that in. But yeah, so a cardboard was even around then. Of course, they were all different sizes, and of course. Certainly, the problem I have with some of my Commodore 64 stuff is that some of it's all on the single tape, some of it's on the double tapes, and then some of it's in really great big boxes. It's just a nightmare to sort of store it properly. I've got stuff in containers, and then the other stuff that won't go in containers is in like cardboard boxes because that's better to store it in there, and it's a nightmare. We're talking about space again, aren't we? We're always going about space. We never have space or anything.
Rob, though, your first system. Just to get it, was a cardboard box with a little tiny thing in. It was a game for the Game Gear. You hate cardboard boxes.
That's true. It would have been, yeah.
I know. I've spent my life trying to keep them as preserved as possible, and I hate them for it.
That is why, isn't it? This is why you hate them so much.
It's not. It's just a natural thing, is it? Cardboard just easily deteriorates.
Have you got any?
That's why every Game Gear game I buy now is not in a box because someone's thrown it away. Because it was much more convenient to keep just the cartridge, or it fell apart.
Have you got any
complete and set?
Sorry, have you got any Game Gear boxes?
Yeah, every one I ever bought when I had it, I've kept.
Ah, right.
I have got. You've never seen my Game Gear collection video, have you, Bear? So disappointing.
How long ago did you do it?
Yeah, probably about a year. About a year ago.
Oh, really? Have I missed that? So
September 2019, I think it's dated actually.
I think I was busy. I'll have to go back and look at that. Yeah. Sorry, mate. I'm sure I've seen it.
I've got about, I don't know, 10 to 12 box. Well, I can't remember exactly. But yeah, I kept everything when I was a kid. I've still got the box for my Game Gear, but it's at my parents', but I've still got that as well.
Yeah, I think I've got a couple of Game Gear ones that are boxed. I mean, I'll go look at my Game Gear. Again, it's another conversation another time, but I think I paid £15 for mine and about 6 or 7 games with it and a nice carry case for it to go in and a couple of box games as well.
Very nice.
Yeah, and of course I think now boxed CX are selling them for £100 at the moment. Just the Game Gear itself boxed.
I've got one.
There you go.
A box one as well.
A friend of mine's got the limited edition Coca-Cola one.
Nice.
Eye-watering amount. Probably not the £100,000 that painting was worth anyway, but not far off it. Gentlemen, we are coming to that point in the evening where we've nearly sort of hit the mark. Is there anything that anybody would like to add further what we said to the listening public this evening? No,
no,
right. Okay.
No, why not?
I was going to say it's really nice that people are coming along and kind of taking part in the comments when this is streamed out on a Sunday. It is really nice to see all the people coming in and getting involved in listening. So share it far and wide, people. The more people involved, the more fun it is for us. We sit here and ramble and have a laugh, but if people want to ask us questions and that for the engagement, then the more the merrier in that sense.
Absolutely, I completely agree with that. And on behalf of everybody, we do appreciate that those people are popping on a Sunday when it goes up, and they are contributing to live chat. People are leaving comments below, and it sort of helps us to, carry on because we enjoy doing this. And if we can bring that to yourselves there, and you feel part of it, and you feel like it's for people, reasonably well.
I'm looking into the future, and I bet the live chat during that Where the Retro Line section is on fire.
And that's of course
PS2 is retro.
Yeah,
no, it's not.
And that's of course we
Just do it to annoy Rob.
And that's of course we get
Bit late
at
in
the
the
right
stream,
time as well. Which for the first time in 3 weeks I managed to do that. There.
Do what? Sorry, missed that.
Upload it at the right time.
I think you mentioned Spice World.
I haven't mentioned Spice World. But, yeah, sorry, Spice World. Anyway,
Years of War. There we go.
See you next week.
Right. Yeah. On that note, then I think that's probably a particularly good time to finish. So first of all, I'd like to thank everybody for popping in this evening and listening to this and giving it the time to take part in this chat. So thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you very much, Ross.
Nice
to join you.
Thank you.
Hey, is he gone?
No, I said thanks, man.
Oh, I didn't know you broke up a bit there. I thought you disappeared. But we managed to make it to the entire podcast without somebody dropping out. And also, thank you very much indeed to Rob.
Thank you very much, Mr. B.
Yeah, very welcome. We will be back again at same time, same place, possibly. I can't guarantee that. They should come with an asterisk to the side of it, subject to availability. But yeah, don't forget, Sunday nights at 7 is when we get new episodes of this podcast going up. We've done 6 episodes now, and we're just really, really grateful for everybody who's taken the time to listen to this and that you've enjoyed it, because, like we said, we do enjoy doing this as well. All that remains to be saying on behalf of the guys tonight, and also on behalf of Pete and Eddie, who can't be with us this evening, to wish you all safe happiness, and let's hope that we soon get through this and getting close to coming out the other side. From everybody here, thanks very much for listening. Wherever you may be, do take care, and bye for now.